on China, Chinese officer recently said that China's ultimate goal is to unify Taiwan by force. How would you comment on this?
Well, it's been clear for some time that there is one side, there's one party that seeks to change the status quo, the cross-strait status quo that has been at the center of stability and security across the Taiwan Strait for some 40 years now. It is not the United States, it is not Taiwan, it is the PRC that is challenging the status quo, that is seeking to erode the status quo, and that even with its recent provocative and totally unnecessary response to the congressional delegation that visited Taiwan earlier this month, has again demonstrated that its willingness to challenge that status quo.
Do you have any thoughts on the latest go-down to visit Taiwan, and any thoughts on the comparatively subdued response from Beijing to that?
I don't have a specific response other than to restate the point that we made previously. Members of Congress, congressional delegations, have gone to Taiwan for decades, and they will continue to do so. Some 10 or more congressional delegations have visited Taiwan this year alone. Members of Congress visiting Taiwan is entirely in line with our longstanding One China policy. In the face of that, and this goes back to what we saw earlier this month, the PRC has entirely overreacted. Our response to the PRC's provocations has been measured, has been responsible. We made clear that we did not intend to escalate and that there was no reason for a crisis. But we also made clear, and you heard this from the White House on Friday, that we won't be deterred from flying, from sailing, from operating in the region in accordance with international law. And that's why President Biden directed, as you heard on Friday, the USS Ronald Reagan to remain on station longer and announced that additional steps would be forthcoming in our support for Taiwan.
But if you're willing to characterize their response to the Pelosi visit as an overreaction and provocative, how do you characterize their response to the marquee?
Well, any response to a peaceful visit by members of Congress, any response that entails bellicose rhetoric or military maneuvers or provocative actions is totally unnecessary and an absolute overreaction.
Okay, well, have you seen any of that?
I'm not going to characterize what we may have seen.
And characterize it if you think that it's out of line. The reaction is kind of like normal and like, oh, we don't like it. We're opposed to it. Taiwan is ours.
The point is, Matt. The central fact is that these are peaceful visits by members of Congress who are traveling there to show their support for the people on Taiwan.
Okay, but this is not an overreaction.
It's not.
I mean, is the only time it's an overreaction when you come out and actually say that it's an overreaction?
It is an overreaction when we hear bellicose rhetoric, or when we see provocations, when we see military maneuvers.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question on China. The Chinese reactions to Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was more harsh than previous U.S. congressional delegations. What do you think is the long-term and short-term impact of Speaker Pelosi's visit on security in East Asia? And do you expect such Chinese aggression to continue in the future?
That latter question is a better question for Beijing than it is to the Department of State. Our contention, and what I think you saw from a number of countries around the world, was to note the total lack of congruence between a peaceful visit by an elected member of our legislative branch to a series compared to what we saw from the PRC, including a series of military maneuvers, a series of ballistic missile launches, including several that landed in close vicinity to Japan. I wouldn't want to speak to what the PRC is seeking to do, but our concern has consistently been that even as we seek to preserve the cross-strait status quo, and countries in the Indo-Pacific seek to do the same, it is China that is seeking to alter, to water down that status quo and to rewrite it unilaterally in its favor. That is something that we have consistently stood against. Everything we have done has been pursuant to our interest in security and stability, pursuant to our One China policy, the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. What we have seen from the PRC is deeply concerning because rather than preserve the status quo, China seeks to undermine it.